My name is Khalid Al-Rashid. I am 60 years old. The events I am about to share began on March 18, 2025. That was the day my life changed in a way I could never undo. It was the day a simple message I shared during a small business gathering began to spread online across many countries. Within hours, people were discussing my words, questioning my beliefs, and accusing me of betrayal. What started as a quiet moment soon turned into a storm that affected my family, my business, and my safety. Before that day, my life was very different. I was born into a respected family in Riyadh, in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. My father was a successful merchant who traded construction materials and industrial equipment. He built his reputation slowly through discipline and honesty, and many people in the city trusted his name. My mother was a calm and wise woman who spent most of her time caring for the family and helping relatives who were struggling. From a young age, I was taught that family honor and hard work were the most important parts of life. My education followed a clear path. I attended a private school in Riyadh where I studied mathematics, economics, and business management. Later, I continued my studies at a university in London where I learned international business and finance. Those years shaped the way I understood the world. I learned how global companies worked, how investments grew, and how powerful business connections could change a person's future. When I returned home after my studies, my father welcomed me into the family company. Over the next 30 years, our business expanded quickly. We invested in construction projects, logistics companies, and property developments. My name slowly became known among wealthy businessmen and government partners. Many people saw me as a symbol of success and influence. My daily life was comfortable and organized. Most mornings began in my large office overlooking the growing skyline of the city. Meetings filled my schedule. I spoke with investors, engineers, and international partners. In the evenings, I often attended business dinners where people discussed projects worth millions of dollars. My wife came from a respected family, and together we raised 3 children who studied in excellent schools. To the outside world, my life looked complete. But success does not always bring peace inside the heart. There were moments when I sat alone in my office after everyone had left. During those quiet hours, I often wondered about the deeper meaning of life. Wealth gave comfort, but it did not answer the questions that sometimes grew in my mind. At first, those thoughts felt small and easy to ignore, but slowly they began to grow stronger. During my international business trips, I met people from many cultures and beliefs. Some of them spoke openly about faith and purpose in a way that surprised me. One evening during a business conference in Europe, a quiet conversation with a foreign investor planted a question in my heart that I could not easily forget. He later told me about his personal journey of faith and how his life changed after discovering the teachings of Jesus Christ. At that moment, I did not understand everything he shared with me, but his calm confidence stayed in my thoughts long after the meeting ended. For many months, I continued living my normal life, yet inside, something had begun to change. I started reading books and historical writings about different beliefs during my late nights. At first, it was only curiosity, but the more I studied, the more questions appeared in my mind. I tried to keep these thoughts private. In my society, religion is not only a personal belief, it is also part of culture, identity, and family honor. Any discussion that challenges tradition can quickly bring anger and suspicion. So I remained silent. But the day eventually came when silence was no longer possible. And when that moment arrived on March 18, 2025, the consequences were far more painful than I ever imagined. The respect I had spent a lifetime building began to collapse within days, and the people who once greeted me with admiration slowly began to look at me with distrust and hostility. Earlier that afternoon, I attended a small business gathering in Riyadh. It was a normal meeting between investors and company owners. We sat around a large table discussing new projects, future partnerships, and opportunities in the growing construction market. These were the kinds of meetings I had attended for many years. At one point, the discussion slowly moved away from business and toward personal life. One of the men at the table asked me about the secret behind my success and the peace he said he sometimes saw on my face during difficult negotiations. I did not plan to say anything unusual that day, but something inside my heart pushed me to speak honestly. Instead of giving the usual answer about discipline, strategy, and experience, I explained that during my quiet nights of reading and reflection, I had begun to learn about the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. I explained that those teachings had started to change the way I saw wealth, power, and success. Some of the men around the table became very silent. Their faces showed confusion and discomfort. After the meeting ended, one of the younger businessmen walked beside me to the parking area. He later told me that my words had shocked many people inside the room. He explained that conversations like that could easily spread and create serious trouble for someone with my public reputation. At that moment, I still believed the situation would remain small. That night, while sitting alone in my home office, I wrote a short message online. In the message, I shared that my understanding of faith was changing and that the teachings of Jesus Christ had begun to influence my life in a deep way. I thought only a few people would notice it, but within hours, everything changed. Friends began calling my phone one after another. Some spoke with worry, others spoke with anger. A close business partner later told me that the message was already spreading through social media groups and private business networks. The next morning, I woke up to dozens of missed calls. By midday, the reaction had grown even stronger. One of my company managers came to my office with a nervous face. He showed me messages that were spreading online. Many people were accusing me of betraying my culture and my faith. Others were demanding explanations and apologies. That afternoon, the pressure reached my family. My wife received phone calls from relatives who were deeply upset. One of my cousins later visited our house and explained that many members of our extended family were discussing my situation with anger and disappointment. The peaceful home I had known for many years suddenly felt heavy with tension. But the hardest moment came 2 days later. While leaving my office building, I noticed a small group of men standing outside the gate. Their faces were serious and cold. One of my security guards later explained to me that some people in the neighborhood had begun spreading rumors that I had abandoned my religion and dishonored my family. That was the moment I truly understood that my decision had consequences far greater than I had imagined. The respect I had spent a lifetime building was slowly turning into suspicion and hostility. One morning, I arrived at my office building as usual. The glass doors, the reception desk, and the familiar smell of coffee in the hallway all looked the same, but the atmosphere inside felt different. People avoided my eyes. Some employees who normally greeted me with smiles simply lowered their heads and walked away. Later that day, my operations manager came into my office with a worried face. He explained to me that several investors had contacted the company. He told me they were afraid their reputation could be damaged if they continued working with me. Some of them had already paused important projects. That was the first crack in the life I had built. Within a week, the situation grew worse. My phone kept ringing day and night. Some callers were old friends who sounded afraid. They told me that powerful voices in the business community were discussing my name with anger. Others warned me that religious leaders were speaking about my situation in private gatherings. One evening, my younger brother came to my house. I could see the tension in his face the moment he entered the living room. He explained to me that many members of our extended family were deeply upset. He revealed that some relatives believed I had brought shame to the family name that our father spent his entire life building. That conversation stayed heavy in my heart. But the pressure did not stop there. A few days later, I returned home after a long meeting and noticed something strange near the gate of my house. A group of young men were standing across the street, watching the entrance. They were whispering among themselves while looking toward the house. My security guard later told me that those men had been coming around the neighborhood asking questions about me. That night, my wife looked very worried. She explained that neighbors who once greeted her kindly were now keeping their distance. Some mothers had quietly told their children not to visit our house anymore. The friendly community we had known for many years was slowly turning cold. But the most painful moment happened 1 week later. My oldest son returned home from school earlier than usual. His face looked tired and quiet. When we sat together in the living room, he slowly explained that some classmates had begun mocking him because of the rumors about his father. He revealed that a few boys had pushed him and called him the son of a man who betrayed his religion. Hearing that broke something deep inside me. I had expected criticism and anger toward me, but I never imagined my children would carry the weight of my decision. That night the house was silent. I walked alone through the dark hallway of my home, thinking about the life I once had. The large rooms, the beautiful furniture, the expensive artwork on the walls suddenly felt empty and meaningless. The persecution was no longer just words on the internet. It had entered my home, my family, and every part of my daily life. That morning, I woke up before sunrise. The house was quiet. I remember walking slowly to the window of my bedroom and looking outside at the empty street. The sky was still dark blue and the city had not fully awakened yet. But inside my heart, I felt a heavy weight. 2 days earlier, a government official had contacted my office and asked me to come for a formal discussion. My assistant later explained that the request sounded serious and urgent. He showed me the official notice on his phone and quietly advised me to be careful. When I arrived at the building later that day, the atmosphere was tense. A security officer guided me through a long hallway into a plain room with a large table and bright lights above it. 3 men were already sitting there waiting. Their faces were serious and cold. One of them began asking questions about my online message and my growing interest in the teachings of Jesus Christ. The conversation lasted several hours. One official explained to me that my words had caused anger among many people in the community. Another officer revealed that some influential leaders believed my message could influence others to question their traditions. They warned me that continuing in this direction could bring serious consequences. When I finally left the building that evening, I felt exhausted. The sunlight outside looked unusually bright after the long hours in that small room. For the first time in my life, I truly felt afraid for my future. But the persecution did not end there. Within the next weeks, my business suffered greatly. Several investors quietly withdrew their money from projects connected to my company. A longtime partner later told me that many businessmen were afraid to be seen working with me. Slowly, the projects I had spent years building began to collapse. I also noticed that people in my neighborhood had become distant and suspicious. One evening, as I walked outside my home, I saw a group of men standing near a parked car. They watched me closely without speaking. My security guard later revealed to me that strangers had been asking questions about my family and daily routines. My wife became deeply worried. She told me that some relatives had stopped calling completely. A few family members even warned others to stay away from our home because they feared being connected to my situation. The pain inside my house grew heavier every day. One night, my youngest daughter came to me with tears in her eyes. She revealed that some friends at school had begun avoiding her because of the rumors about her father. She looked confused and hurt as she explained how quickly people had turned against our family. Seeing that pain in my child's face broke my heart more than the loss of money or reputation. For many nights I could not sleep. I often walked through the quiet rooms of my house thinking about everything that had changed. The large home, the expensive furniture, and the wealth I once believed was important now felt empty and powerless to protect us. But during those silent nights, I also felt something else growing inside my heart. It was a quiet strength. The more pressure I faced, the more I remembered the teachings of Jesus Christ about faith, forgiveness, and courage during suffering. Those teachings slowly gave me the strength to continue even when my world was falling apart. My life would never return to the comfortable path it once followed, but through the persecution, loss, and rejection, I began to understand that true faith sometimes grows strongest in the middle of pain. Before we end this story, I want to encourage every believer around the world. Please remember those who suffer because of their faith. Many people across different nations face rejection, threats, and deep loneliness simply because they choose to follow what they believe is true. Pray for them so that they may have courage, protection, and peace in their hearts.